and welcome back, everybody. We are here for our third feature match of today's stream. I myself am Costa Dimos, and I am once again joined by the ever so not lovely Mr. Jamie Boyd. How are you doing, Jamie?
Yeah, we're getting through this quite quickly. We've had some really fast-paced games so far coming out for these last two matches. So I have to see if that trend is going to be continued here, as we are going to be jumping into the match between New Zealand and Australia.
Yeah, this is a matchup I'm very excited for. I may be a tiny bit biased because I was born in Australia, but let's try to ignore that. As we're going to be seeing the current standings of their group right now, so we get a bit more of information background, of course, as we do see the United States already guaranteed that very, very strong position going into the next stage of this tournament. They will be progressing on to the playoffs. So what this, of course, does mean, ladies and gents, is that we do have a oceanic derby between Australia and New Zealand, whichever team will win will be able to advance to that next stage. And if there were a tie between both of these countries, Australia will be advancing. No, this is not rugby, this is VGC, and I am very, very much excited to see how this pans out.
Yeah, definitely be an interesting one to see. And you always want to be the team that does have that slight edge, the tie as the potential way through as well. So Australia going into this with the slight advantage, but we'll have to see how the teams are currently doing this week so far. It does look like the New Zealand have the there with the 1-0 against Australia, coming out with a Calyrex Ice Rider team, a very hard Trick Room team coming out there and able to take the victory over that Zacian team.
Yeah, that Oranguru and the female Indeedee. You've got two Pokemon that have the exact same typing, but they do have the different functions to that team composition. Just coming through there. But I did just want to note that there is a Lurantis as well. So this team, I think I have seen it going around a couple of weeks now, and it's such an interesting build.
Yeah, Lurantis is a Pokemon you don't see too often, but definitely makes sense on these kind of hard Trick Room teams. It's another Pokemon that is kind of has a pseudo-defiance, especially when it intimidates, because Calyrex Ice Rider is not a Pokemon that wants to be intimidated, but Lurantis very much does, as it will get that +1 in its attack instead of the -1. So definitely going to be a solid partner to that Ice Rider to start sweeping through that trick. So able to take that victory for New Zealand in this first match.
Yeah, exactly. And very, very strong up against a team that is very well known to be a staple of this meta, that Zacian and Fire, Water, Grass Core, with the Suicune actually being water, and the Landorus Incarnate and Regieleki. But of course, ladies and gents, we are here to find out which team will try to go and get that additional point for their side. We're going to go ahead, get straight into the actual player profiles. We do have Chamath, Abeyawardana being first with a team that is quite familiar to us. We have seen it quite often, especially today. The Tornoga team composition, but with a bit of changes, we actually have a cheeky little Ditto at the end.
Yeah, so each of these players that we've featured with the Tornogas, just putting their own spin on it. You do obviously always see that Tornado, and which I still want to. Oh, that's my alarm going off. Very professional of me, but
unprofessional, Mr. Boyd.
We always see the Serena, Tornadus, and Kyogre together at this point, so it is pretty much a staple core. We've seen the Shedinja over the Ditto instead. We've seen the Urshifu as well instead, but now the Ditto going to be the Pokemon choice here. Able to copy any of the opposing Pokemon, so effectively giving you the chance to get a second restricted on your side of the field.
Yeah, and piloted by a good player of the Oceanic community, of course, being able to attain a top 4 in the Players' Cup, number 3 Oceania Qualifiers, and in 2021 this year, oh, sorry, I believe that may be incorrect there. But essentially in Players' Cup 1 as well. So consistent form in both Players' Cups. Of course, this may be an indication of a newer player, but a player, of course, that has grasped the concept quite well of VGC and has been able to go ahead and perform on a great stage, as they are going to be up against Trent, sire of New Zealand. Oh my lord, rocking a very, very interesting team, and that does look a bit like a Como to me, Jamie.
Yeah, Como is a Pokemon that's been picking up a little bit, especially going into this Series 10. We had seen a lot of body on previous Pokemon in previous series, like the Registeel that we saw so often. But Kommo-o does have the fighting type as well, so it'll have an even stronger body press than normal, and does pair up very well into some very common Pokemon. We see the core of Incineroar, Rillaboom, and Urshifu very, very commonly, and all three of them just get completely walled by the Kommo-o set. And then you can start going for those iron defenses, start firing off some really, really powerful body presses as well. So we'll have to see if that is a strategy that can come for Trent here. Going up against the Kyogre team, you also got that Dragon typing, which is definitely going to help resist those water type attacks.
Well, exactly. That is what you want right now. You do, of course, have to avoid any ice-type coverage coming out from either the Tsareena or the Kyogre or even the Tornadus itself in this matchup. But, of course, something that Trent, I do think, has to take notice of is that Ditto. So if the Kommo-o somehow does get set up, it's going to be a bit worry of that Ditto that could just come straight into the matchup and may even flip the momentum going into it. As we are going to be seeing it from Chamath's side of the field. How are we feeling in this matchup? It's quite interesting with all the different compositions of Trent's team, because, of course, on Chamath's side, we're quite familiar with the team already.
Yeah, usually you would expect Yveltal to pair up quite well into Kyogre teams, very commonly carrying the Assault Vest as well. We've seen a lot of Galarian Moltres, almost like a budget Yveltal, that are sometimes teched onto teams for the Tornogre matchups. So Yveltal is going to be slightly stronger than that and should pair up still reasonably well into the Kyogre. You still got the Pokemon like the Regieleki that can still do a huge amount of damage. You've got the Triple Axle that we see so often on the Tsareena as well to be able to bypass that. And you've even got the potential of facing down another Yveltal if that Ditto manages to copy. And looking at the team coming out there's not too much Pokemon that can actually deal with an Yveltal themselves. Maybe the Stack Attacker if it is carrying the Rock-type move, and still would do a lot of damage to the Yveltal with the Gyro Ball. So if you do manage to catch that with your Ditto, that would be very strong as well. But may just be relying on the Kyogre instead. You can still get yourself into a reasonable position, start firing off those water spouts. You just need to be concerned maybe if the Stack Attacker gets up the Trick Room or does carry the Wide Guard as well to be able to put a stop to those spread type water attacks.
Yeah, and I do like Yveltal for sure. If it is, of course, an Assault Vest variant, you've got a plethora of moves you have access to, which could cause so much disruption, as we do see Trent leading with just that. Bacon Bird is on the field with the Amoonguss by its side, up against what we have commonly seen before, and we will probably see again, the Tornadus and Kyogre lead.
Yeah, so I have to see if that Amoonguss is carrying something like the Cobra Berry to take the Hurricane better, the Mental Herb if it is going to get taunted as well, because if you don't go for the taunt and don't knock out that Amoonguss, it's just going to be able to get a Spore off into the Kyogre or the Tornadus at this point. So yeah, definitely does need to deal with that Amoonguss quite quickly, but at the same time, if you focus down on that Amoonguss, you're leaving the Yveltal free to do whatever it wants, and that could very easily be something like a Snarl into the two special attackers. That would be very effective at reducing the damage output there, and we'll have to see what kind of variety that Yveltal is as well. Assault Vest is definitely the most common, but it is a Pokemon that does sometimes run Tailwind itself. If you run Tailwind, you can start matching the Tailwinds coming out from the opposing Tornadus as well.
As we're going to be seeing the Tornadus opt to go for Hurricane, and a Berry proc of the Cobra variant on the Amoonguss does guarantee that it is not even going to be 2-hit KOing the Amoonguss, as the Water Spout will be coming out first ahead of that Yveltal. I'm not sure if that is an indication of Choice Scarf or just a very slow, snarling Yveltal being able to drop the special attack of both the Tornadus and Kyogre, and to be quite frank, deal a lot of chip damage. As a double up, we see Grass Knot from the Amoonguss nearly picking up the KO on Kyogre there, and absolutely shutting down any sort of Water Spout plays coming from it.
Yeah, I wouldn't call that chip damage. That was a huge amount of damage coming out to the Kyogre with the Grass Knot, and not opting for the Spore there instead to put a stop to one of the Pokemon on the side of the field that turn. If that is a Choice Scarf on the Kyogre, that Water Spout is going to be heavily reduced, but if it's not Choice Scarf, you would still be able to switch up your move in this case. But even still, you are put into Sucker Punch range of the Yveltal now. You always have to be worried about the Tsareena that could be switching in, but you've got that Snarl off into the Tornadus and the Kyogre at this point. You've reduced the damage output that can come out this turn. Yveltal probably should be able to survive this turn pretty comfortably. Amoonguss does have the potential as well to just switch out, get that Regenerator going so it can get its HP back up, or just stay on the field, try and get off some more of those Spores.
as the Kyogre on Chamath's side is going to be switching out for the Tsurena, maybe predicting a potential Sucker Punch like you mentioned there, Jamie, as the Amoonguss follows suit immediately after. Will be getting that regenerate ability, recovering a bit of its HP for that Stack Attacker, shiny Stack Attacker coming out on that slot. Hurricane, of course, will not be dealing any damage whatsoever. Doesn't pick up a confusion there that there was, of course, a chance to do so. And this Yveltal is going for so much damage, so close to picking up the KO, but that is a lot of HP recovered from its side.
Yeah, you get a lot of recovery thanks to the Oblivion Wing, and not picking up the knockout actually there could be slightly beneficial for Trent, as you don't give that switch back into the Kyogre, which would be able to deal with this Stack Attacker. Now you need something like High Jump Kick on the Tsurena, otherwise the Stack Attacker is going to get free reign of whatever it wants to do this turn. So actually a pretty good turn, not knocking out the Tornairs there with the Yveltal. You get it back nice and healthy with that Oblivion Wing. You've got a very easy target of the Oblivion Wing facing down with that Tsurena as well. Effectively another health pack for the Yveltal at points. You've still got the potential of Triple Axel to come out from the Tsurena, which would still do good damage, but probably still not enough to pick up the knockout, and then you'd just be giving a lot more recovery back to that Yveltal.
Yeah, essentially that, and let's not forget, of course, the tailwind pressure is on Chamath's side of the field, so this Triple Axel may be coming out first against the Yveltal, as we see the Regieleki switching in right now, maybe preserving tailwind for future turns, as we do get... Oh, that is so unfortunate. The one-time hit only out of potential 3 of the Triple Axel, being immediately retaliated upon with that Oblivion Wing. I've got to note, that's another amazing signature move there, the animation of it, nearly bringing it back up to 100 of max HP, as we are going to be seeing the Stack Attacker now setting up the Trick Room, which does mean that Trent will now be moving first.
Yeah, that Stack Attacker is looking in a fantastic position right now and can just pretty much start firing off any of the attacks it wants to go for, whether that's a Rock Slide to hit both Pokemon, or the Gyro Balls into the Regieleki, because of the speed difference and the defenses on the Regieleki, it will still do a huge amount of damage. And yeah, not connecting with that Triple Axel means that Yveltal is very healthy.
Oh, as the Gyro Ball just picks up the raw KO onto that Tsurena, will be, of course, proccing its Beast Boost ability, being able to bring its defense up now to +1, meaning that it will add to its longevity against physical type Pokemon, which of course there are no other left on Chamath's side of the field. We see the Snarl dealing so much damage, but even if it is at -1 of its special attack there, the Thunder comes out, deals so much damage, and picks up a cheeky little paralysis because it can.
Yeah, that's definitely something that will allow Chamath back into this game. And now that Yveltal may not be able to move for the foreseeable future, you've got that potential paralysis chance. But now you've taken care of the Tsurena. Sucker Punch is completely available at this point. You're even in the Trick Room, you can just start firing off whatever attacks you want to go for at this point. So yeah, still very comfortable for Trent. Stack Attacker really just gets its pick of KO here. Both Pokemon would be in Gyro Ball KO range.
Chamath opting to protect his Kyogre right now, as well as the Regieleki. Very safe double protect right now, but the real cost of it will be the following turn, because Chamath's game plan right now is to try to essentially waste all the remaining turns of Trick Room, as we see that the Yveltal tried to move right there. Of course, it didn't matter, as it was fully paralyzed and double protect came out, but the rain is now over, Jamie.
It is, yeah, and opting for Rock Slide there is slightly shaky accuracy. The Gyro Ball would definitely knock out one Pokemon, but I think that Rock Slide is still the better way to go, because you've got that paralysis on the Yveltal, because you've still got a chance of not hitting both Pokemon, but if you do, that's just going to be a double knockout.
Oh, talk about double knockouts. There it is, ladies and gents. Critical hit, of course, not mattering at that low HP range, which, yeah, you guessed it. We've got a +3 in defense Stack Attacker, Beast boosting its way to victory, as Yveltal's just going to be snarling away essentially to itself. It doesn't find any opponent across from it, as now, unfortunately, the one remaining Pokemon on Chamath's side, that Tornadus, is going to be coming in with that 6 HP, and we see a lock-in of the forfeit.
Yeah, there's not really anything that this Tornadus can do here. The Stack Attacker just pretty much cleaning up at this point. Any attack would knock out the Tornadus at this point. And it's going to be down to Chamath here to stop that Trick Room. The Stack Attacker just allowing the Trick Room to get set up and really just firing off all the damage coming out for Trent's side of the field. Sakataka wouldn't be the Pokemon you'd expect to be very strong against a Kyogre, but if you get it in when the Kyogre's not on the field, that will allow you that free turn to get that Trick Room set up and then start firing off those powerful attacks. So yeah, you definitely need to put a stop to that Trick Room, but I think that the leads coming out, the Yveltal and the Amoonguss, now that you know that it's a Cobra Berry coming out from the Amoonguss, you know that you can't knock it out with the double up of the Hurricane and the Water Spout. Probably a combination attack that would normally knock out a non-Cobra Berry Amoonguss at that point. So yeah, that definitely does change things a lot, because as soon as the Kyogre got hit by that Grass Knot, the Water Spouts are effectively useless at that point. You're put into range of whatever attack that Trent would want to go for at that point, and that makes things a lot awkward, especially if that's your main answer to the Sakataka.
Well, yeah, and we do know, of course, and as we saw in that game one, that Trent has a lot of bulk on his side of the field. He's got a lot of ways to sponge up any sort of damage output that came out from Chamath's side there. As the Amoonguss may be doubled up and may get that KO onto it if there is any sort of Ice Beam, Hurricane being directed its way, as we did see the Kyogre actually outspeed that Yveltal in that game one. So both trainers will be aware of this, so it is quite interesting to see what they think is their most optimal lead going into this game too.
You've got to put a stop to the Amoonguss somehow, but that's one of the key things that Amoonguss does. It puts on the pressure even by not even doing any of the attacks. You need to put a stop to the spores, else it's going to put your Pokemon to sleep. But if you do that and ignore the other Pokemon, that effectively gives free reign of what it wants to do. And a Snarl is a very strong option into a Tornadus and a Kyogre. So even if you put a stop to that Amoonguss, getting a Snarl off into the Kyogre could allow the Yveltal and whatever else would come in pretty much free reign of what it wants to do at that point. So still pretty awkward, especially because you know you can't knock it out with a combination attack that probably would have knocked it out in the first place there. Maybe wants to opt for something like that Ditto. Ditto would be another way through the Stack Attacker. If you can copy it and it's carrying a fighting move, then you could potentially go for that fighting move into the opposing Stack Attacker while matching its speed at that point if you're not the Choice Scarf on the Ditto at that point. So definitely a potential option for Chamath here going into this second game, because if Trick Room gets set up and you haven't got that Ditto, things are going to look very rough.
Well, exactly, and that's kind of the role of Ditto, to be able to try to counter your opponent's strategy in the terrain and environment that they have set up, especially in this Trick Room mode. As we are going to be seeing Trent actually opting to go for the Incineroar now, accompanied by that Amoonguss against Chamath's Tornadus Incarnate and Regieleki.
Yeah, it's an interesting lead choice for the Incineroar in the face of what could have been a Kyogre, but not facing down the Kyogre now. Is just going to be facing down the Regieleki and the Tornadus. You could put a stop to any of the supporting move or the Hurricane coming out from the Tornadus with the Fake Out. You've always got to be worried about the Serena that could switch in, but really the Serena's not going to be too worried. You're not going to be too worried about the Serena with an Incineroar and an Amoonguss, so wouldn't actually be too concerned. The Regieleki's not in a very favorable position either. I definitely can't deal with this Amoonguss very quickly. It's very likely that if that Tornadus does not carry Taunt, something should be going to sleep this turn.
Yeah, essentially, that's the very good threat of this Amoonguss, being able to sponge so much damage whilst also threatening that Spore, that 100% guarantee of a sleep status being affected onto your opponent. As we're actually going to be seeing the Ditto switch in for that Tornadus, it will be able to get that Intimidate on the opponent's Incineroar, whilst most crucially having Fake Out pressure the following turn, as the Regieleki is going to be opting to go for the Protect there, does not want any potential Focus Sash broken there, as the Fake Out will just deal a tiny bit of chip damage, and Trent chose wisely and targeted down that what was Tornadus, now Incineroar slot with the Spore.
Very strong play coming out there to put that Ditto to sleep, and now it's going to be a lot more awkward to be able to make use of it copying the opponent's Pokemon. You can't go for any Fake Outs or Flare Blitzes this turn because you've got that guaranteed turn of sleep. So very smart targeting on the Tornadus. You don't really often see Protect too much on that Tornadus. You usually opt for some supportive move like that Taunt or the Rain Dance that's been picking up as well. So yeah, quite smart targeting there, expecting no Protect coming out in that slot. You're not really too concerned about the Regieleki. You effectively guarantee yourself a sleep at that point.
As the Volt Switch will be targeting that Amoonguss, get a bit of chip damage, but once again, Chamath just wants to try to go and regain momentum when it comes to board position, because that is the most crucial thing. But this is subject to a very free Spore if Trent just very easily decides to click that button into that slot. Kyogre will be bringing the Drizzle, of course, will be threatening that Incineroar on the subsequent turn if it is not put to sleep, as we do see the Incineroar parting shot that slot as well. Very safe, easy gameplay from Trent's side. Wants to get that fake out for future turns, and maybe that Yveltal now that could really threaten, which just disrupting and dealing constant chip damage onto Chamath's side of the field.
Yeah, and you've still got the Spore that can come out into that Kyogre slot, and that would really put a stop to what Chamath can do this turn. Yeah, we're going to see the Spore go out into that Kyogre, and that's going to be taking a guaranteed sleep as well. So at least you burn a turn of sleep on the Ditto with the Incineroar, so now it can go for any of those Flare Blitzes or parting shots just to get on out there and copy something else in the future. Because you're not going to be doing too much damage to the Amoonguss at this point, because you've just set up the Rain as well. So yeah, still incredibly awkward position for Chamath. You need to start finding a way to break through that Amoonguss, and the best way is normally going to be your Tornadus, but the Cobra Berry is the item of choice coming out for Trent there. So really, there's not too many ways to break through that Amoonguss. Flare Blitz on the copied Amoonguss would have been a good way, but you need to first be awake and also not set up the Rain so you can still do that damage. And then the other option is an Ice Beam that can come out from the Kyogre, but it was put to sleep this turn. It was guaranteed to stay asleep, so it's going to just be switching out here.
This may prove to be quite risky, but no, Chamath wanting to bring the Tornadus in, whilst Trent will be switching out that Amoonguss for his own Incineroar to get the fake out on that subsequent turn, following suit, as the Yveltal will be left free reign to go for the Snarl, deal so much damage onto that Tornadus, be able to bring it down to -1 of its special attack, whilst of course serving up an extra bit of chip damage onto the Incineroar, which wakes up, goes for the parting shot right now, that Ditto should I say, into the Yveltal slot. Will be bringing it down now to -1, get a bit of a taste of its own medicine, whilst the Regieleki will be opting to switch in as the pivot choice on Chamath's side of the field.
Yeah, you definitely needed that wake up very quickly for that Incineroar, and getting the parting shot onto the Yveltal, it won't be doing too much damage here. And now you do threaten some reasonable damage with your own Regieleki at this point. So yeah, definitely an important wake up there. And the Tornadus didn't get put to sleep by another Spore that could have been fired off by that Amoonguss, going to switch out into the Incineroar instead, but that still gives you fake out pressure this turn. So really you can just put a stop to that Regieleki if you want to with the Incineroar to stop any electric type moves coming out from the Yveltal, and then you can just fire off another Snarl into the Regieleki and the Tornadus. That would definitely reduce the damage output significantly, and so allow the Yveltal to take on the Regieleki a lot better. And if you go for the Snarl as well, that would break any Focus Sash on the Regieleki, but instead just going to be switching out that Yveltal for later.
Yeah, so the Amoonguss is once again on the field. It is threatening future Spores as well, as the Incineroar opts to go for the fake out into that Tornado. So it covers quite well, anticipating the Thunder coming out, and oh my lord, look at that little mushroom just sponging up all of that damage, resisting the electric type, and being put in a very good position yet again.
Yeah, it's not taking too much damage, so definitely still going to be out of range of any Hurricanes coming out because of that Cobra Berry. And yeah, it's still just going to be able to put anything it wants to sleep.
Yeah, as we're going to see the very rapid Volt Switch coming out from that Regieleki, dealing that tiny bit more of chip damage, slowly bringing that Incineroar quite down right now within range of certain things. As yes, Jamie, we see the Amoonguss, or should I say Ditto, coming in and being able to just go ahead, copy its nemesis on the other side of the field. Hurricane comes out. I think Chamath is hoping for a confusion here if he could get it, and we do not see it, as the Incineroar now taking Yveltal's role, going for the disruption. That Snarl slowly dropping the special attack of its opponents that bit more down and closer up until it picks up KOs. And once again, Amoonguss just left to do what Amoonguss does. It just spores away.
Yeah, but now you've got your access to your own Spores at this point, so potentially going to be trying to take out a copy what Trent is going to be going for here with those Spores. You can't Spore the opposing Amoonguss at least, but you can go for it into the Incineroar slot, and that could be some way for Chamath to get back into this game. We've seen how disrupted the Spores have been at this point, but yeah, the Stack Attacker is going to be the Pokemon of choice that could be switching in on a Spore here.
Yeah, and this feels like it may be a safety dodgers as well, just the way that Trent decided to switch it into that slot. We see a double switch from Trent's side. Now the Amoonguss switching out for that Yveltal. It wants to get a Pokemon on the field, which can directly threaten that Amoonguss, which can really turn things around when it comes to momentum. And there it is, Jamie. Safety dodgers on that Stack Attacker confirmed.
Yeah, so that's the item of choice that you wanted on that Stack Attacker for sure, facing down the Amoonguss. And now he really just gets fire off an Oblivion Wing and should be able to pick up the knockout on that Amoonguss, because Ditto does have lower HP than the Amoonguss, so should be in range there of that Oblivion Wing. And we know that there's not going to be any kind of Cobra Berry coming out from the Amoonguss on this side at least. So yeah, Tornado stays asleep for this turn. It's burned its mandatory turn asleep at this point, and so it could potentially wake up, but you're really not threatening down that Stack Attacker in the slightest there. You've got potential of Grass Knot, but that could just be put a stop to immediately by the Oblivion Wing coming out from the available. So it's still just an incredibly awkward spot for Chamath. Really, you probably need to be preserving that Ditto, copying the available or the Stack Attacker at some point. It doesn't seem like Incineroar or the Amoonguss was the Pokemon that you need to be copying there. But yeah, instead Tornez is just going to be switching out into that Sleeping Kyogre.
Yeah, as of course the Amoonguss will be left to its own devices. Maybe if you try to get a Spore off onto that Yveltal, it'd be quite nice for itself, but let's remember and not forget that this is a Ditto-based Amoonguss. It does not have the Amoonguss that normal, regular Amoonguss Pokemon would have, and it is subject to that KO from the amazing Oblivion Wing, whilst Trent's Stack Attacker is just opting to go for that Trick Room, and there's nothing stopping it.
Yeah, nothing at all. We saw how decisive that was in that first game. The Stack Attacker just started picking up all the knockouts when it got into that Trick Room. It's finally been able to manage to do it in this game after quite a few more turns at this point. We've still got a Sleeping Kyogre as well at this point, so not going to be too effective as the answer to the Stack Attacker. Even if it was able to attack now, it is at full HP, whereas it was very low in that first game. So if it's able to get off that attack, survive the attacks that could come out, you'd still be able to pick up the knockout on that Stack Attacker. But Regieleki, yeah, that's not the Pokemon you want in Trick Room, so it's going to be protecting itself.
Yeah, makes a lot of sense. Once again, you just want to try to stall out whatever you can from this onslaught, because it feels that way. You've got so much pressure coming out from Trent's side of the field. The Kyogre, though, does actually evade that Snarl. It doesn't evade the Rock Slide, so I think at this point, Chamath is kind of hoping for these misses.
Yeah, you got to take whatever you can get at this point, because it is looking very rough for Chamath. You're able to dodge some damage coming out from the Snarl and the damage output reduction as well. So if you had landed that Snarl, then you'd have been probably feeling a bit safer against this Kyogre, but not at this point, and now the Stack Attack is going to be switching out into the Amoonguss.
Yeah, so Amoonguss now on the field will be threatening for the Spores once again. Snarl dealing so much damage. My lord, I'm just so not used to seeing this. As the special attack will be dropped on both sides of the field, or should I say, sorry, on both the Regieleki and the Kyogre. Thunder comes out, just barely shy from that guaranteed 2-hit KO. But like we've mentioned, the only thing you can do right now, if you are Chamath, is to try and stall out this Trick Room. Go for the Protects, and maybe even a Wake Up Protect with the Kyogre if you can.
Yeah, you're almost there. So there's only a couple more turns. You've got the Ditto waiting in the back. You wanted to copy that Amoonguss in the Trick Room, that would be very good, so you can go for the Spores into the available. But then at the same time, you could just switch straight into the Stack Attacker at that point. But instead, just going to opt for the Protects to sort out the Trick Room.
All right, so the Kyogre did wake up there, so that's kind of okay, but then again, it's just the fact that there's so much resource over on Trent's side for Chamath to try to bring this one back, and you got the constant pressure of the Snarl Spore combination from that Yveltal and Amoonguss. So the Amoonguss, of course, does have a lot of HP, and not Amoonguss, on the side of the field. It is going to be a very big threat, and Chamath needs to try to find a way through this, maybe even with RNG if he can at this point.
Yeah, it's still very awkward at this point. And really, you could just go for Grass Knot if you wanted with the Amoonguss. We saw how much damage that did to the Kyogre in that first game. It should be in range at this point. And yeah, with the Ditto knocked out earlier, you didn't even have the opportunity to copy the Amoonguss. You've got the Tornadus waiting in the back that Regieleki is going to be switching into here. And may be able to survive a Snarl, but it's still taking a lot of damage.
Yeah, taking a lot of damage. Kyogre, though, does go for the double Protect, I believe, there. Was able to get that one off, which will be guarding itself from that Grass Knot and the Snarl combination, which surely would have been able to pick up a KO there. As, oh my lord, Jamie, there goes the Tornadus. It's out. out of this game too. But this does allow the Regieleki to come back in. But then again, Trent still has that Amoonguss on the field.
Yeah, it can just go for the redirection at this point. The Regieleki, it could only go for Electro Web, but that wouldn't really be doing enough damage to the available, because it's still sitting reasonably healthy at this point. Maybe an Electro Web and an Origin could pick up the knockout on the available, but outside of that, the Amoonguss could just redirect at this point, or it could just even go on the offensive. Even if you just go for the Sucker Punch with the available, there's no Serena that could be stopping that at this point. Regieleki should be in range, and that is what we are seeing coming out from the available.
Yeah, Sucker Punch means it does pick up the KO onto the Regieleki. And the Ice Beam, though, does come out, maybe hoping for some sort of freeze here or a crit, but neither appear, as the Amoonguss, believe it or not, seems to be an MVP, or one of them on Trent's side, picks up the KO versus Chamath's Kyogre, which of course will guarantee him that 2-0 win, being able to reflect quite nicely for New Zealand being in the lead 2-0 as well versus Australia.
Yeah, very, very strong start for New Zealand coming out here. And yeah, they do need to secure the win to advance into the next stages. And now they're only 3 matches away from that. So really, really strong showing for the available there. Very strong into the Tornado matchup, especially paired up with that Amoonguss. And you really just had all the text that you needed on Trent's side of the field. You had the Cobra Berry so that Amoonguss could survive the double up of the Hurricane and the Water Spout. You had the safety goals even when you were facing down the pseudo Amoonguss in the Ditto as well. You even had the safety goals to stop the spores. So you got that Trick Room, and so the Trick Room was key in game 1 to allow the second to just sweep through the game, and then just really allowed no way back in two.
Well, essentially that. I think this was a very tough matchup for Chamath. Let's be completely honest. It looks like Trent had his Tornado matchup completely sorted. He had the flowcharts for it. He had all of the potential scenarios that he could go through. He knew what he had to lead every time and knew more importantly, which four Pokemon to bring on his side of the field. It's just so nicely put and constructed from Trent's side. I just feel like that goes to show and pay dividends why team building is such an important aspect to VGC, as long as you know and you have roles designated for specific matchups that you're able to go ahead and just apply pressure just with those Pokemon being there.
Yeah, we saw a really strong showing of that in that last game. So a victory for Aveltal over the Tornado matchup and a win for New Zealand. So we're going to be jumping back into another short break, and we'll be right back with the 4th game of today.